This is Writers Not Writing, the show where you can get to know your favorite writers and soon-to-be favorite writers by listening to them confess to the ways they procrastinate. Thanks for procrastinating with us. I'm Benjamin Gorman, and the quiet guy behind the glass there is Doug the producer. I write novels and collections of poetry and stuff. Doug tries his best to make me sound better. And each week we have a secret word to listen for. If you catch it, you earn the right to take an extra break at the time of your choosing from whatever is stressing you out. From NotAPipePublishing, welcome to Writers Not Writing.
Today's secret word is Highlander.
If I take my time.
Hail and well met, readers and reviewers. I am very excited about today's show. Today's guest is Dutch Jackson. Dutch Jackson is an author based in Seattle, Washington, a devoted father of three and a loving husband, with interest in writing, blacksmithing, metalwork, paranormal investigations, and outdoor activities that have profoundly shaped his creative works. Widely recognized for his debut novel, The Chronicles of Dawn, he draws inspiration from personal challenges and achievements, imbuing his narratives with authenticity and depth. Known for his Renaissance spirit, Dutch continues to explore and write, contributing unique voices to the literary world. Welcome, Dutch. Very glad to have you here today.
I'm very glad to be here, Ben. Thank you.
So before we get into it, people who are watching on YouTube know we dress up for this show. We've got, we go all out on these costumes. So tell the podcast listeners what you chose to wear.
Well, it was very difficult for me to find this outfit because I'm 6'2" and 325 pounds, but I was able to acquire the authentic Dr. No costume from James Bond movie of the same name.
So cool.
Right?
I went the other way, so I knew you were going to wear the Dr. No costume, and so I am, 5'10", and I am dressed as Jaws from, two of the what is it, Moonraker, and he's in a couple of them, and Jaws is this henchman played by Richard Kiel. He's 7'2", so I'm luckily sitting down. People don't have to, see just how far I am from actually being Richard Kiel's height. But I did have to get this wig. So, he's got short, dark hair. And then this is the important part. He's got these teeth, and they are all metal. It's going to be a little bit challenging for me to talk around them today, but they're very scary looking. So imagine a 7'2" guy with these giant metal teeth. And that was his thing, was like he was going to bite Jaws. At one point, he even bites the metal cable on a tram, one of those mountain pass things.
Went across the mountains.
Exactly. So I'm Jaws, and you're Dr. No. We are very villainous today.
I just want to let you know, in the hood they call those grills.
Yes. I've got my grills are not gangsta grills. They are biting through giant metal cable grills. So I have been really excited to talk to you because your first book is out. I'm holding this up so folks can see it. So this is the first in the Chronicles of Dawn series, Weapon of God. And so what is how has that whole process been going for you, and what's next?
So, backstory, real quick. That book took 15 years to write.
Yeah.
A lot of challenges. It started as just a simple idea that I told a friend of mine, and he said, this would make a great movie or series. And we enlisted a friend of ours. I'll leave names off the title, except for the one listed there on the cover, Tom Proctor. He's a good friend of mine. But we enlisted another gentleman, and we were going to do a pilot. I thought the pilot looked great. My wife looked at it from a more objective point of view and said, "What's this about?"
Yep.
And then I looked at it from her point of view and went, so she was right. It left the viewer with no idea what was going on.
Yes.
So yeah, we had, and there was a lot of other technical difficulties with it and such, but it never went anywhere. But the best part about doing this whole process was meeting this good friend of mine, Tom Proctor. And I don't know if you know him.
No.
He's always this one guy. He's done Super Bowl commercials. Do you remember Guardians of the Galaxy?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you remember the scene where Yondu is arguing with the guy with the brown curly hair?
Yeah.
In the goatee?
Yeah.
That's Tom Proctor.
Oh, okay,
So I
yes.
mean, he always gets these roles here and there, and he has the Tom Proctor band. He's big into country music, fabulous musician and singer. He's got that smoky voice, so really good friend of mine. And I called him up, and if I get a little emotional, I apologize because it still gets me, I called him up and said, "Hey Tom, I got a favor to ask." And he's kind of, he brings it down a notch. He goes, "Family don't ask for favors, they tell you what they need." So I was like, oh.
Yeah.
And I asked him to do, the forward letter, and
Yeah.
he
How
did it.
cool.
And I was like, that's cool because that's him putting the blessing on something that's been,
Mhm.
a decade and a half in the making, so it was really cool of him to do that. And
Yeah, that is really cool.
so
And so so this series is about kind of Wild West meets, Nephilim, angels, that kind of thing. What have you got in the hopper? Because I understand you're thinking about going in a different direction next.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. This one's a good one, and I'm hoping not to give away too much, but I want to go sci-fi future, 50 years from now, Seattle. I want to do, because the wife and I, we love detective shows, and we're always watching those kind of dramas. And she's big into, I don't know if you ever heard of that show, On Patrol Live.
No.
It's kind of like, remember Cops,
Oh yeah.
but this one's, it's like that, but it's live, and
Oh
they've
wow.
got
It's not
50
even, so this
cameras.
is not
Hey,
fictional. This is,
this is real stuff.
yeah.
So you pick up all these, terms and such, and I'm like, I'm really thinking I'm going to do a detective. She's and I'm very much a person because, well, three, I have strong female figures in my life. I like a strong female protagonist, and I want them to be the one that comes out on top. You know what I mean? I want them to kick the booty, so to speak. So I want to make. I talked to one of the models because I like cover models. So second and third book, we did a photo shoot, and one of them, her name is Madison Mason. She's my best friend's niece, and she's a triplet. So I'm like, oh, this is building in my head.
Yeah,
This is
right.
great. This is good. I asked her if I could play off of her character, and I'll use her. I use her name, but it's switched around. So I'm going to call my character Grace Madison,
Yeah.
you know,
Nice.
and it's going to be a little bit on the paranormal side because, my paranormal investigating. So she goes into a situation, and she just uses, I guess, safe space here. She uses emotions
Yeah.
to determine what happened, you know and there'll be more science fiction behind it and everything, but it's going to be a combination of a 50-50 shot, paranormal and science fiction. 50 years in the future, I make a tongue-in-cheek reference to her old 2030 Dodge Charger,
Yeah.
that needs new batteries because it's an electric model.
Yeah.
So little stuff like that. So I've been kind of, whenever I get stuck on book 3 of Chronicles of Dawn, I bounce over to that one
Yep.
and do a little bit on that one. It
Which is
keeps my
good to
mind
have. I've
fresh.
found that it's good to have multiple projects to work on. Sometimes you get stuck on one and you don't have to slow down. So
Exactly.
yeah.
And I didn't understand that at first because, I heard Stephen King did that and a few other writers did that. And I'm like, how do they keep that straight in their head? And now I know how.
Yeah. 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 Well, and for
It
me,
makes
it's genre. Like, yeah, I think you're wise to, because you really change gear when you go from Angel Western to sci-fi paranormal. It's, there's a real shifting of gears there. And so you
right,
can be in a different headspace. And that makes it easier. For me, it's often, okay, I'm struggling with the novel. I can work on poetry, then I can go back and forth.
right.
My next one is going to be fantasy. I'm fairly certain, so I can switch out of the kind of paranormal, which I know from a professional kind of money making perspective is bad. You should always write the same book over and over and over, and I just can't do that. Like I
No,
need to have variety in what I write, but I know there are folks who go, I really liked this one book of yours because that's the genre I like to read, and I'm not going to read any of the others because they're not my thing. And I'm like, I get it,
exactly.
but I can't write the same book over and over.
It's
Uh,
like Piers Anthony. He did the same thing. He
yeah,
had fantasy, then he had this different genre over here, and it just he went all over the place. I think he had one that combined. I can't remember the name of the book, but it combined science fiction and fantasy.
Oh yeah. Yep.
You know,
Yeah.
I'm drawing a
Yeah, the
blank on
space
the name.
opera. I'm trying to remember
Yeah.
which one it is, but yeah, he did the space opera thing. Well, and I've
Mhm.
read sci-fi noir. There's some great sci-fi noir novels. I don't know that I've ever read any sci-fi paranormal, so that'll be interesting.
Yeah,
See how
it's
that
gonna be fun.
works.
I wanted to clarify something for you on Chronicles of Dawn. She starts in the Old West because that's when she was born back then, but she's like it's kind of like Highlander,
Oh yeah. Okay.
and she moves forward through time, but then after the backstory's done, I kind of bounce her around to World War II, Nazi Germany, or
Mm,
the time of the czars and Russia, or you know what I mean. I kind of throw her all over the
that's
place,
cool. So
so.
because she's immortal, you've got a lot of time to play with. Yeah,
And that was one
that's
of the
cool.
things I used to love that show Highlander, and that's what I loved was whenever they did a backstory on his when he was sword fighting in colonial time or something,
Right,
just
right.
it was always like ooh.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it gets a little bit of that kind of Doctor Who vibe of like what time period will this character be in this next
Mhm.
scene? Yeah.
And in book two, like I mentioned before book two, I'm waiting on one arc reader to come back with her notes. I'll make adjustments accordingly, and she'll be ready to go.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting.
So, and my wife, she picks on me. I think you should wait longer to publish, but I try to explain to her, I can't,
Yeah.
and there's a reason because I'm an indie author, and everything dictates in order for me to get said attention
Right.
to my books, you have to constantly be producing.
Well, it's tough. I mean, on the one hand, the readers who enjoy your work will come back whether it's a year or 10 years, right?
Right.
The flip side for us is you want to have more things for them to purchase, right?
Yeah,
So if you were in a situation where you had one book that was a monster hit and you didn't need the money, I would say take more time. Like you don't need to be cranking out a book every month. On the other hand, when us indie authors, yeah, content is king, and so that is a tension in the industry for us. I have to say to authors, take your time, slow down, write the best book you can. And they find that really surprising for me as a publisher. They think I'm going to be going, where's the next draft? Get me that next book within this short
exactly.
amount
Yeah,
of time. And I'm saying, nope, take your time, write the book well. Because that makes a bigger difference in the long run, right? If you've written
exactly.
something that people really are like, wow, this is polished and I really enjoy it, then I'm gonna keep coming back. But we have that other pressure to be continuing to produce content for readers
Exactly.
just to keep them aware of us. So yeah, that is tough in the attention economy.
And
But
I
we're
don't
getting
want
too much into process. So when you are not writing, since it's a show about what we do when we're procrastinating, what has been pulling you away from your work in terms of pop culture lately?
oh, um, I'd say I was trying to been trying to get this show, and it's hard to find over here. Svengoolie.
And I had never heard of this before. You mentioned it, and I was like, I need to look this thing up. So what is Svengoolie?
So I'm totally blown away from it. It's like, okay, so I told you about that show that my wife is obsessed with.
Yeah.
And in one of the episodes, because attention to detail, I have this OCD where I'm like, ooh, what's going on in the background? What's he
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about there? And this one guy kept talking about, yeah, me and my wife were just trying to, this guy interrupted us and we were watching Svengoolie. And I'm like, and the guy asked him, he goes, what's Svengoolie? Oh, it's this show, blah, 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 blah. It's been on since the late 60s or something like that. I talked to my friend Dave. He's one of my oldest friends. We were in the army together. And he said, yeah, because he lives in Indiana. It's an East Coast thing. And
Oh,
it's mainly broadcast from Chicago, but this one, they've switched main characters once. And I guess because he's just a host.
yeah.
They run a cheesy like horror movie, sci-fi horror, whatever movie, and in between like takes or whatever the commercials, they're doing little skits, amusing skits in the background type thing. Like, do you remember a Mystery
Oh
Science Theater
yeah.
2000?
I'm a big MST3K fan.
Right?
Yes.
Minus the shadow of them in the front.
Yeah.
you're just talking. Remember the little skits they would
Oh
do in
yeah,
between?
yes.
It's
The
kind of like
interstitials
that.
were so yeah. I mean, that was a formative and important part of my high school experience. Was oh, there's an MST3K marathon on Comedy Central. Yes, I
Oh
will
yeah,
be doing nothing but that all Saturday and
there'll
Sunday.
be
Like,
there'll be
yes, I love
popcorn
that
and
show.
soda pop.
Yes. In fact, I interviewed one of the writers for that show. Elliot
Oh, did
Kalin
you?
was on this show. A brilliant writer, incredibly talented, and very, very funny. Like those guys, they're so witty that they can rattle off these jokes. That show is totally scripted. Like it sounds like it's impromptu, but it's not. They do write it. But when they're in the writer's room, they're
Mhm.
tossing out jokes that you and I would go, that's the best joke I've come up with in a decade. And they're like, nah, cut that one. We've got 10 that are better. Like these guys are really, really
Wow.
clever. So yeah, there is a level of comedy writing that I really admire. Yeah, it's Svengoolie. I'll have to check that out.
Well, okay. I did find it since we talked. I have found it, but you have to subscribe to the streaming service, of course.
Of course.
But the streaming service also gives you all these other channels, so it may be something worth it. If you're really into the show, you can try it for free or whatever, and then see what you
Which one
think.
is it?
My brain just went blank.
Yes, well, you'll have to let me know. We'll toss it in the show notes. But yeah, folks, look up Svengoolie. Are the sketches themselves available on like YouTube? I wonder if I could find those just to
That's a
see
good
some of the
question.
clips.
That's a good question because the show just seemed interesting, but it has been going on for so
Yeah,
long. I'm like,
that's a long time.
how am I just now hearing about this? Because I'm kind of a couch potato most of the time, Ben. I mean, I'm like, the remote's worn out for a reason.
Yeah, well, two jobs. Yeah, you come home and you're exhausted. You crash.
Exactly.
That's, the way it goes.
Rock
Yeah,
is a
that's
wise man.
yes. Okay, Svengoolie, I will check that out. What about a news story that's pulled you away from your work recently?
Let's see. There was that. I'm a fan of science fiction and comic books and stuff, and there's that. I know you. I don't know if you've ever watched The Boys.
Oh yeah,
Okay, they did that spinoff, Gen V,
which I
and I
really liked. It was
really
really
liked.
good.
But unfortunately, the tragic death of Chance Perdomo
Yeah,
on that hit me hard because I get invested in these actors, and I saw him in the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, as her cousin, and there's a few others that I've seen him in, but this one he did so well. His acting was, so on point. So yeah,
yeah.
that
For folks who've not heard the story, this guy was only 27 years old, incredibly talented, really on the up and up. Like you watch Gen V and you go, that guy's going places, and he was in a
Mhm.
tragic motorcycle accident, so and passed at 27, which just
Yeah,
heartbreaking. But yeah,
yeah, but yeah, so
that
that
show
one.
is so good, and I presume it's coming back. So are they just going to recast?
I honestly, in these kind of situations, I hope they don't. When
Yeah,
it
write
comes
him
to
out in
this,
some way that's
you
creative.
know, that where I think if they, say something like, I don't know, Homelander took him out or something, the
Yeah,
character, and then just, you know,
he was such a good character. So the
yeah.
character he played on the show was the son of a kind of middling superhero, and he always was aspiring to be as cool as his dad, and yet kind of rejecting, all this pressure. And his dad never, seemed to accept him. And then we learn over the course of it, this isn't too much of a spoiler, that his dad is kind of aware that this is a gross conspiracy, and yet his son is now a part of it. And so the acting he had to do was really leveled because he's
Yes.
having to play this character who is really resentful of his father but wants to live the cool life, and was using a lot of drugs and women as a way to kind of escape from the fact that he always felt like a failure. And then yeah, so the acting chops necessary were really pretty impressive. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
I
shame.
I seriously doubt they'll be able to find somebody to actually replace him, and you know, I kind of feel like in those cases, you know, make the character, pass on
Yeah,
somehow,
yeah.
and
And the other trick is you want to make them pass on, but you don't want to lard down the show with the real life tragedy. That's so tough when somebody's beloved, and then you're like, oh, and then the whole next season is about how much we as a cast miss this colleague of ours, but that is not something that necessarily translates to the audience who did not know this person as a real human. And so you'd want to go, how do we, acknowledge that we've had this loss, and not do it in a way that dishonors this actor, and you go, oh yeah, by the way, he was no big deal and we wrote him off. But at the
Yeah.
same time, not go, and the show is now all about somebody who's passed on, who is not the character, who is the actor. Like, and so yeah, that's tough.
No, I would think if they turn it towards a vengeance type thing, we want revenge because you killed him,
Yeah.
then it's not loaded down like you said. It's fire under their butts
Yeah.
to
And
move
he's still,
forward.
he's present in a way.
Yeah, in a more, heroic sense or something. I don't
Yeah. So
know.
when you are when you're not consuming media, when you're not writing, what other kinds of hobbies pull you away from your work?
Well, I have a lot of different things. That's one of the reasons a few people call me a Renaissance man. Um, I like blacksmithing, amateur blacksmith. Not going to say that I'm going to go out and make a sword anytime soon, although that is on my bucket list.
Yes, the goal, right?
Yes, and I put some of this stuff into my books. So the blacksmithing, Damascus steel is just the most pretty. I don't know if you've ever really witnessed
No.
anything like that. There's a show called Forged in Fire. That's what got me into
Hmm.
blacksmithing. And I thought, just a little bit of inspiration.
Is it
And
expensive to get the materials to actually get do you use like a butane, what is what you have to build in order to do it?
well, you can get for a minimal cost, I think it's a couple $100, you can get what they call a sword forge. And it's
Yeah.
just this square tube that's been cut off. They line it with fireproof insulation, and it has these two jets on top, and you hook it up to a propane tank. Um, Always check your propane because
Yeah.
nothing's more saddening than you're in the middle of a really good forge and you run out of gas.
Yeah.
You know? But start small. I used you walk along any of these places, that where there's a railroad crossing. Just be
Yeah.
safe, and you can pick up old railroad spikes that have been
Yeah.
dislodged, or they change them out, So you stay away, be safe, pick up 4 or 5, take them home, and light them up. And I've made the twisted handle and nice blades on them. I start small with stuff like that, and
What
then
temperature do you have to get those I mean, what do you have to use to actually get those to a place where they're malleable?
the temperature I could guess on, but I would rather just say the color of the metal is got to be like a between an orange and a yellow.
Yeah.
And the metal, it's got to be what they call plastine, like a plastic.
Yeah.
So, and it's and you're making sure that you're using the right hammers for the tools, because at first I had like this 2 pound sledgehammer. You know how tired I was after
Yeah.
6 swings. So there are other hammers that do the same job, just without all that mass. So
Yeah.
it was, like I said, amateur. I was learning, and now I've got a whole setup. I use a part of a railroad rail that was cut off. It was when they're
Yeah.
changing the rails, and they just said, "Yeah, you can have it." And I have a 2 foot section, put it on a stump, and you learn to work around it, instead of, because as soon as that show came out, anvils went from a dime a dozen to $6 a pound.
Wow.
And it's like, wow, this is
And
a
that's a lot
60
of
pound
pounds.
anvil.
Yeah.
You're like, no. So yeah, it's blacksmithing on the cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's cool. I mean, and I love that. I love having, I started trying to do some sculpture last summer and painting the year before, having some other art forms that we can get into, improves the creative mind in all
Exactly,
areas.
yeah. It
So
keeps the
that's
juices
cool.
flowing.
Yeah,
Now
exactly.
I've done some smelting, basically anything brass, aluminum, copper, stuff like that. And I use what, they call it green sand, but it's red. I don't know why. Maybe it was green back in the day and the name just stuck, That's always fun, being able to just take something and upcycle it,
Yeah.
to something beautiful. I've done some resin work. I'll have to show it to you later. I'll email you the pictures, but I have me and my coworker, we had a gentleman that was retiring from I think I told you I work at the Museum of Pop Culture.
Oh, you do at Mopop.
Yeah.
I did a signing at Mopop one time. I love Mopop. That is the coolest museum. Folks who have never been able to go, it is not what you expect. Whatever you expect, it's not that. It is a cool place. I really enjoyed that. I thought, oh, it's just going to be a bunch of guitars. Like, no, it's a really cool museum.
Well, we had a guy that worked there, and he recently retired, and he used to be in a hair metal band back in the 80s, right? Rock on. And he played a bass. Well, we were like, I didn't want to give him, like, they always take a piece of what they call it the purple element. It's the purple sheet metal that's outside of the building. They have extra pieces of it, and they go get it engraved. And I'm like, I know he doesn't want that. I've known the man for 5 years, and I know he doesn't want that. He's just going to, So I said, let's make him a guitar.
Yeah.
So I got a couple of pieces of live edge wood. And I don't know if you've ever seen this done before, but you sanction it off. You put it basically into a pool, like a catch basin, and you put it in there. And I poured resin in the middle, a deep purple resin
Oh,
with
that's
this
cool.
lovely pearlized metal flake to it, and let that set up for a few days to really cure. And then I put it on. We have a CNC router at work, and I put it on that, and I carved out a J bass. They call it jazz bass. Carved it out, routed it, sanded. I mean, we're talking, this thing it went from just scrap to beautiful.
Yeah.
My coworker who builds, he's a guitar aficionado, if you will. Yeah, he's in there. If you look in the acknowledgments on the book, he's Brad 20K Olson.
Ah.
Yeah. So my buddy Dave, he goes, "How's old 20K doing?"
Sure.
So he built the rest of it. I mean, he wired it up, hooked it up, and tuned it, and it was just gorgeous. So
How cool.
that was cool. That one right there, I was like, yeah, I'm getting pictures of this. I just built that's my first guitar I ever built,
Yeah.
And so now I want to do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what a cool project.
Yeah, so yeah, that kind of, all these little things, but it's like you said, it keeps the creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
You got to have a distraction over here. You call it procrastination, but
It's
sure.
not. Yeah, it's part of the process, right? So, I have taken to asking authors this question as a kind of a Rorschach to kind of get to know you. So, if you were a character in D&D or, a variant, some other universe like that, what would be your race and class?
Okay. I used to play D&D when I was a kid. I liked it, but I just felt like, and no, this is no offense to anybody who plays D&D. I want to walk across the street. How many times do I got to roll?
Yeah.
It's like, and I got to roll for this, this, and this, and this. Okay, after a while, you're just like, So I got into this game when it came out in the late 80s, early 90s, and it was called Hero Quest. Loved it. It was a lot simpler. You still did all your rolling. You still did rolling for certain things, but it wasn't a whole sheet of stuff that you had to go through
Yeah.
just to say hi, to
Yeah.
somebody, right? So it's a really cool game. And I was like, I'm going to look for that old game. And recently I found it, but they rebooted the whole thing and it's all cool. And it's not, it's all, not all guys
Yeah.
on the,
Yeah.
if the barbarian is a female or a male,
Yeah.
or male, so it's really cool. And they got a lot more rules. So I'm usually the DM
Hmm.
when it comes to these games. But if I was to play, to answer your question, they got a new character, and he is the wandering monk. But he's not like, we're talking, he's the Shaolin monk,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yes.
So, what do you think that reveals about Dutch Jackson, the real person, that the Shaolin monk would be your character?
I try to, because just like on the card, I try to live my life with peace first, but I am a pacifist, and if you mess with my friends, I will pass a fist across your face. That's the Shaolin monk.
Yes. So I can pretty much predict where this is going to go, but imagine you were ambushed. Three level 1 goblins. They're not a particularly serious threat to you, but they ambush you in the woods. What do you do?
Well, first I would say, hey, can we all sit down and talk about this? We'll have a lovely flask of ale or something, or a tanker of ale, however much you want to drink, body weight considered,
Right.
and see what these little guys want to talk about and go from there.
Yes. Yes.
You like how I did that?
Yes. Then that's a good transition. So we're going to go to our commercial break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask you what you've been daydreaming about lately.
Ooh.
Special announcement time. NotAPipe Publishing has always been committed to helping authors and readers find one another. Well, the show, which is all about helping readers get to know writers, just hit a milestone, 10,000 views on YouTube. So to celebrate, instead of charging authors to advertise their books on the show, I'm going to run your ads for free throughout 2024. If you want to make a 30 to 60 second video about your book, let folks know what it's about and where to find it, and don't forget your name and the title. I'll run 1 or 2 of those in our ad spot each week. Just send an MP4 file to the NotAPipe email address in the show notes. Let's fix up some readers and authors into reader relationships. 2024. More readers, more writers, more books. Alexandra has never been so far from home or so deep in danger. Now fans can follow the journey to the end. Reader Views says New Horizon is a fantastic beginning to the Europa trilogy. This riveting adventure will have you hanging on to the edge of your seat. Get all the books of the trilogy, New Horizons, Challenger, and New Frontiers, wherever you buy books. Or visit the author at michellecleigh.com. Leigh spelled Leigh. Join the adventure today. Authors, poets, screenwriters, writers of all kinds. We're putting together our team for the Alzheimer's Association's annual The Longest Day fundraiser, and we want you to join us to use your writing superpowers for a good cause. Our team, Writing Against the Darkness, joins together via Zoom or in-person meetups and writes from dawn until dusk on the summer solstice. So mark your calendars for Thursday, June 20th, 2024. We're teaming up with some wonderful partner organizations to build our team, thanks to the Author Alchemy Summit, Indigo Editing, Unsolicited Press, Pile Press, the Pile Press magazine Chunk, and Overcup Press for joining with NotAPipe Publishing in this fundraiser. There are links to all of those partners in the show notes. If you want to get to network with writers from these great partners, get a whole lot of writing done, and raise funds for Alzheimer's research and care for families suffering from this disease, click on the link in the show notes and join the team. You're going to be writing anyway. Why not write even more and do some extra good for the world? See you there. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here with Dutch Jackson. Dutch, what have you been daydreaming about lately?
Oh, well, like I that new series of book that I've been trying not to let it to use the hippie term bogart my brain, but it has because I'm super excited about creating this one. This is going to be something. It's like this. I told you it took 15 years to make that first one.
Mm-hmm.
After I hit enter and it was out there in the ether,
yeah,
a dam broke in my head. Like years of pent up, imagination just came flowing forward. And yeah, so I've been obsessing about this one because this series is really cool. To me, I'm not saying it's any cooler than Dawn. Don't want my books to get jealous.
Right.
No main characters,
No favorites.
Right? I don't pick favorites. They're my children, But with Chronicles of Dawn, I feel like if I went past 3 books with her, unless it's a spinoff, I would be beating a dead horse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas with this one, it's I guess the best analogy I have is or comparison is, you ever heard of Lee Childs?
Yeah.
Jack Reacher.
Right. And you could just
How
keep
many
going
of
forever.
those books,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And I've listened to them because I have a long drive to work and a long drive home. And
I
whenever
love
I'm doing a Bible
audiobooks. I'm a
job, same
big
thing.
fan. Yes.
Audiobooks, and I'm just sitting there the whole time going, no.
Yeah.
I know people are looking at me going, what's he thinking about?
Yeah.
So
Well, you're
yeah,
stuck in Seattle traffic.
yeah. So with Grace Madison, I could do that. I could have these
Yeah.
fantastic stories. And with the way that I write, it's like I feel like it would be something that a reader would enjoy, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not tooting my own horn, but I'll give it a little beep beep. So
Yeah, yeah. No, that's good. I mean, yeah, I have found that when when I want to, to follow the stuck in traffic analogy, when I'm working on a project and I want to, kind of veer off and, I might get off on some of the little side roads and start thinking about the next project. One of the things that I do is a lot of note taking. So I can go, oh yeah, so that I don't forget. What are these notes for the next project? Okay, now back to work. And I end up with these documents that are, it's 200 pages of notes for the book, and that's fine. Like, and I tell students all the time, it's fine for me to know the characters better than the reader. Like, it makes sure that, that helps me make sure that I am consistent. But so, or the setting or whatever, I can know a lot more than actually makes it into the book. But yeah, I'll have just tons and tons and tons of notes, and
oh, yeah.
so that's yeah, so that you don't get too far away from dawn. I encourage you write these things
Oh, yeah.
down so you don't forget them, but
I have
also
a
so that
I
you
have a
don't get
lovely
lost.
Mopop provided notebook.
Yes, yes.
And it's a great book. I was like, I could never find one like this in the store. I'm using this for my notes. And they were like, and people in that way, when I'm at work, um, they go, oh, look, he's taking notes. I'm like, yep, it's all about work.
One of the formative experiences of my life. Bethany will never know how much I appreciate this, but Bethany Leigh, who is one of my favorite poets, she's just an incredibly talented poet. In fact, she's got two books coming out in this next year. But we were at a function one time, and it was back in my church going days, and
Mhm.
we were going into this worship service, and I said to her afterwards, I had this idea, but we were in worship and I didn't feel like I could write it down. And she said to me, "You're an author. You always get to write." And that was really like huge for me because boy, that
Yeah.
has sure changed my life. I can be in a staff meeting, I can be in the middle of, whatever. And it's true. When you're taking notes, no one stops and says, hold on. You need to focus right now. No, you're taking notes. Maybe you're focused. And so that has been really wonderful for me. But you're right. There's a big difference between doing it on your phone and doing it in a notepad. Like when you're doing
Yep.
it in a notepad, people think you are paying attention. When you are on your phone,
Yes.
people think you are not. And so, yeah,
They
so
think they're
Bethany
distracted
Leigh,
with Instagram or
right.
TikTok or
But yeah,
something.
Bethany Leigh really that helped me, and I want to share that with everyone out there who is a writer. If you are a writer, you are always allowed to take notes. It's one of the great privileges of this endeavor we've taken on that is in other ways very difficult, but at least it gives us a pass. We always
Yes.
get to take notes.
I
So
I do have something back to the D&D character thing. You made me think about this. In my D&D nerddom, when I'm writing and I make up a character, I make a stat sheet
yeah,
just like in D&D, and it is so flippin' helpful.
yeah, yeah. It's
I
really
refer to it.
practical.
I just keep it. I keep it in another document on my desktop, and I go back to it and I go, "That's right. She had green eyes."
Yeah.
You
Yeah, I
know?
mean that's the kind of thing where I provide my students with this long list of characteristics and they fill it all out for all their characters and I say to them, this may not be something you ever use again, but I'm going to force you to be a planner rather than a pantser once so that next time you're stuck, you can choose to do this if you want to. And it's that kind of thing. Like let's have all these notes on this character so that you can have a resource and go back and say, what color did I say that character's eyes are? I don't remember. That was 300 pages ago, you know.
Because I'm going to tell you, the person reading your book's going to notice when you change their eye color 3 times.
Well, and they're going to notice because they identified in a different way than we did, right? So they went, oh, this character is like me because she has green eyes. And I didn't identify in that way because the green eyes were not important to me, but they were important to some reader. And then when I switch and the character has brown eyes, that one person's going, wait a second. You told me that I could identify with this character, and now you're telling me I can't. So it's, yeah, it is really important that once we catch them with some detail that they connect to, we can't betray that.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got all this great stuff going on. What are some announcements that you want to share with the world as you move forward?
Well, let's see. I'm drawing a blank.
I know you've been doing a lot of TikTok. How's that been? I mean, that's a platform that is challenging. Yeah, how's that been going?
Well, I have 2 TikTok accounts. One of them I started like I think it was right during COVID, and it's just making funny videos, you know, and I got up to almost 41,000 followers on there.
Oh,
you know, it was like just doing just me being stupid, you know, just jokes. And now I started a separate one for my author, you know, being an author, which I do recognize that whole imposter syndrome, you know,
oh my gosh, yes,
I
that's
didn't
real.
really know. I'm like, so, you know, it's real.
It's absolutely real. Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, I noticed that, and you know, well, anyways, I'm sorry, I'm going off track here, but I got, you know, the TikTok going, and I have noticed it's quite suspect, or as the kids say, sus, you know, because whenever, like when I posted about us having this podcast interview, um, my views on a video would be anywhere from 2 to 300 normally.
Yeah.
Anytime I was doing anything promotional,
Yeah.
big save.
Yeah.
Unless I tagged people, and then I would get those people in it. And every time I posted a video, it would say, you know, if you want to promote this video.
Yes.
And I'm like, no.
Yeah, TikTok is saying maybe we can make money off you by squishing this unless you give us cash.
Yeah, exactly.
It's you know, it's kind of old school mobster meets algorithm. Like it's you know like it's a nice TikTok account you got there. It'd be a shame if something happened to it. You know?
Pretty nice, you know.
Yeah. No, I do, you know, and I understand all these corporations you know have a profit motive. Have you heard of it was Cory Doctorow, the science fiction author, wrote an essay about, and I don't think this term will you know get me in any kind of trouble because it's a technical term now, but he talked about the enshittification of tech platforms. It's a really interesting theory. He goes through and he talks about kind of the incentive structure. And the idea is when you're starting any one of these social media platforms, the first thing you want is as many possible people on it as you can. So you design the whole thing to be welcoming and fun. And, you know, we want lots and lots of people here. And then once you get them, the natural next thing to do is to say, okay, but how now we've got, you know, 10 million people on this platform or, you know, whatever. Now we need to make money from them. And often at this point, the CEO leaves, the founder, you know, and now it's this other group of people who are like, oh, we're going to figure out how to monetize this thing. And so then it's okay, now ads. And then it becomes now we need to serve the people who are creating the ads. So who cares if it's fun for the people who are on the platform? Is it satisfactory for the advertisers? But then the third stage, the enshittification, is when they have made it so unfun for the for you and me, for people who are actually on there, that then the advertisers are going, well, nobody's on here anymore. This is ceasing to be fun for even viewers. We're going to leave, and the only people who are the of interest now to the founders are the board, the investors. And
Right.
so now it's, well, how do we do weird things to try and keep the as many of the advertisers happy? I mean, at this point, the viewers are like the bottom tier, right? And now it's, how do we just make sure that the advertisers are happy? And because they're all thinking about the advertisers and nobody's thinking, how do we keep people on the platform? The whole thing falls apart. And
Exactly.
so it's a really interesting, and he goes through and he talks about, Facebook and Twitter, and, all of these follow this same pattern where it's, hey, this is about making it fun for you. No, it's really not about you. Now it's really about the board, and it's enshittified.
Yeah. No, you're right. And that's very true because yeah, like Instagram, I don't get any of that stuff on Instagram. Instagram, it follows an algorithm, they send it out there, and they could give, two poops.
Yep.
So, you know.
Yeah.
So, but man, TikTok.
Yeah.
So, and going on that, it's like if that gets turned off, that's gonna suck for a lot of people because there's people that depend on that for an income.
Right.
I
Well, I
mean,
hope I was at a writing conference and they were talking about this very thing, and they were saying, be sure you own your followers list, because you want to make sure that you are directing those people to share their email with you, to get onto some kind of newsletter, because any one platform could kick you off tomorrow. And so
yep.
you don't want to be dependent on any one platform. And I think a lot of those TikTok influencers also use Instagram Reels, also use YouTube, so that if the thing disappears tomorrow, if they're smart, they are preparing for that.
Mhm.
They're getting ready, because yeah, you don't want to find yourself in any circumstance where your entire income is based on one platform. Like
And I
that's a
think
bad idea.
didn't the bill or whatever that he signed give him a year or something?
Yes, and I think that's been really interesting to watch, because my impression is, because it got bipartisan support, which is unusual in Washington, and it leads me to believe whatever secret thing they were told about this technology scared the crap out of them, regardless of whether they were Republicans or Democrats. And
Ooh,
so they learned something we don't know about the extent to which that company is infiltrated by the Chinese government, that made them, go, oh, regardless of what party I am, this company can blackmail me. This company can, is learning all this information about me. We all agree that this is really bad for us politically, right? And so I think that, the common folks like you and me will never know what they were told, but whatever they were told scared them all equally.
yeah, they all got pale.
Well, and it is kind of legally problematic, because we're basically saying, hey, an international company can own it as long as that international company is friendly with us. We don't trust China, which is not a fair standard. It's not like, oh, if the person who wanted to buy it was from the UK or Germany or something, we wouldn't go, no way, you can't possibly own this giant tech company. It's not really that it's foreign, it's that it's specifically foreign in a government that we fear.
Yeah.
And so that's, I'll be interested to see how that kind of plays out. Can they actually let the thing die, or are they going to sell it to some, billionaire here who's just going to keep it the same?
Who knows?
Yeah, but it is interesting.
Oh,
Um,
I hope it's
so
not Musk.
yeah, no, oh please, yeah. Yeah, oh, I could just imagine him doing that. Yeah, just to be douchey. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, he would be like, and now I own this other thing that I'm gonna inshitify. That's all he knows how to do. There's a great podcast that's about his whole life experience, and when you go back, like, all he's ever done is steal other people's stuff. Like, he's
Uh-huh.
never, he got his start stealing somebody's idea about basically an online yellow pages, where he told the guy, comes into his office and goes, instead of these yellow pages books, you are and I are old enough to remember the yellow pages, we should have an online version. And Musk goes, that's a terrible idea. Nobody will ever use that. And as soon as the guy leaves, he's like, I've got a great idea. And he goes off
Yeah.
and gets a bunch of funding, and he steals it and makes his first mint. So yeah, and then hey, somebody else is building electric cars. I think these are really great. He's not the engineer. He doesn't know, he just steals other people's stuff, and he's convinced all these people he's a genius.
Hmm.
He's
Yeah.
a total scammer.
He's a smart thief.
Yeah, yeah. We our whole system is designed to incentivize con artists
Hmm.
and lift them up. So one of the things I say I'm going to do, and I'm terrible about actually remembering, is putting up a weekly poll. So what would be your weekly poll question if I remember to toss it up into the world?
Let's see. What do you choose? Because mind you, I need to get a new motorcycle because of COVID. I had to sell mine. Sorry, I needed a moment.
Yeah, yeah.
It
Oh,
hurt. Yeah, but I'm going. I got my eyes set on a Ural. They're the ones with the sidecar,
oh,
and
fun.
yeah. So I'm hoping one day, but I'm going to put this out there. What do you prefer, Harley Davidson or Triumph?
And if you had to put an elbow on the scale yourself, what would be your preference?
Ooh, Triumph. I like a Triumph.
Like what are they? I mean, these are ridiculously expensive machines. Like my
Yeah, I'd
brother,
never
one of my
own
former
one.
brother-in-laws had just this most beautiful Harley. He tricked the thing out. It was so cool. And he was like, "You want to try it?" And I literally rode it around like the cul-de-sac. And when I was just making the turn, I was braking because I was nervous that I would spill it. Well, if you're braking when you're nervous you're spilling it, you're gonna be more likely to spill it, right? And so like that impulse to go, okay, no, I need to give it gas to keep this thing
Mhm.
up. And the whole time I'm thinking like, this is 40 grand.
Mhm.
Like I'm gonna wreck this thing. And I was like, I drove it right back to his house and I was like, nope. It is terrifying. They're so expensive. But
Yeah,
yeah, they're really
I know
cool.
I've heard of, I don't know if you've heard of Keanu Reeves. He has his own motorcycle manufacturing company, and
Mm,
he makes his own motorcycles, and the only people that can afford them, unfortunately, are the people in Hollywood.
yeah, yeah.
Because I mean, I'd love to own one. Those bikes are just so beautiful. But like you said, I would be afraid.
Right. And then that fear leads you to ride them poorly. Like, you've got
I'll
to,
just leave it in the garage and look at it.
right. Yeah, these are just works of art at that point. Well, and I think there is that disconnect, for people like us. Yeah, it would just be, something to be like, I can never, dare to afford to get on this thing. When in fact, it's a status symbol. You got a
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves bike, you're supposed to be riding it to the expensive party, right?
Yeah, the Ural, if you get a chance to look it up, it's a Czechoslovakian bike. I think it was first built in 43. For you young kids out there, that's
Yes, yes.
1943.
Last century.
And it has not changed in design.
Ah,
I mean, of course, the paint and stuff like that, yes, but the you can still, if you bought a new one now, you could take parts off of the 1943 to exchange.
that is cool. I was just in Vietnam for a trip, which was an amazing experience. And their big thing is scooters. And
Mm,
Saigon, which has, I think I'm going to get these numbers wrong, but I believe it's 13 million people in the city of Saigon, 8 million scooters. Like
yeah.
almost everyone has at least one scooter, sometimes two, and it's a scooter culture. Like the fashion symbol is
Hmm.
helmets, and to the point where people will buy helmets the way some people in this country buy shoes. So they'll have like
Ah,
30 helmets in their house, because it's got to be one to match your outfit,
yeah.
you know. But
What are you wearing
yeah,
today?
it's wild.
Blue.
Yeah. But and they run, you can get a scooter that's perfectly functional for, $800, and you can get one that is $3,000. But people are riding around their fancy scooter, and then they trick them out, right? And
Right.
so,
I'll have
yeah,
to
that
talk to
is
my
cool.
aunt about that. She's Vietnamese. She's originally from Saigon, and
Yeah.
I even she always likes sharing little stories like
Oh yeah,
that.
you'll just have to ask her. So scooters, and then they're into their scooters. So that was really cool to get to see. And so they have like designated lanes for cars, and then four other lanes for scooters. Like most of the
Wow.
vehicles on the road are scooters, and you're just watching all these folks. And one of the cool things about the way that changes culture is the truck stops are not truck stops; they're a bunch of hammocks because you've been riding, sitting all that time in traffic and it's uncomfortable and you don't want to sit. You want to lay
Yeah.
down when you get to stop.
That
So
makes
you're
sense.
driving down the road and everybody's in, having a coffee in hammocks, which is very cool. And you're like, oh, are these people all relaxing? No, these are people who work 10 hours a day and ride in their scooters, half an hour each way, to whatever job in the city. And so they're chilling in hammocks, having a coffee after work. It's pretty cool.
Have you ever been to Amsterdam?
No, I never have.
The wife and I went there last year. Actually, yeah, April of last year because we were celebrating our anniversary. It was our
How
anniversary trip.
cool.
We went to Amsterdam, Ireland, Scotland, and London. It was a long trip.
Yeah. What a great trip.
Amsterdam.
That's great. I would love those. Ireland, Wales, England, Scotland. That was one of my favorite trips. And
Yeah.
Amsterdam is certainly on my list. I would love to check out the Netherlands.
You have to keep your head on a swivel, as they say in the military, because the bicyclists own the road.
Yeah.
They own everything. And I think there's more bicycles per person than there are, if you can wrap your head
Yeah, yeah.
that one.
Yeah, more bikes than people. Which, I mean, and the people live longer and they are
Yeah.
healthier. And like it's a great that's a great model.
Nice people too. I mean, just everybody there, it was like we had the greatest trip to so many nice people. And I was like, I want to live here.
Yeah, there are days where I'm like, how much? I think I wonder how prohibitively expensive it is. It's getting so, I mean, you're in Seattle. The
Mm,
rent, is so expensive. And so I
yes.
don't know if I could, afford to live anywhere else that was more expensive in terms of rent, but there are places in the world that I've certainly looked at.
Yeah, I think the wife and I tease about Scotland,
Yeah.
like one day.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, that's that. Yeah, my Crystal and I have talked about moving to Scotland and buying a castle, and then I would have a tower to write in, and then she would just walk up and down the tower in like a
Spiral
ghostly
staircase.
dress. Yes, the spiral staircase, That's like the dream retirement plan. It's funny, we talked about that on our first date, and since then we've both talked about the fact that the other didn't run screaming at this super nerd who wanted to get a castle, and that we were both like, that sounds awesome. We're like, we're kind of perfect for each other.
Yeah, destiny.
Yes. So, another thing that I've been asking folks about is what is their like super controversial hot take? So, what is your hot take that is so controversial that it's going to get, that it's going to blow up? That it's going to generate the outrage that the algorithms love. What is your outrage machine take?
Ooh, just on any subject?
Well, I feel like I see these takes that are so unfortunate nowadays where I
Mhm.
think I don't even know that this person really thinks this, but
Or they're just
but
copying
maybe
somebody?
they're just doing it for attention, and so to kind of spoof that.
Yeah. Well, I have one, and it raises eyebrows. And you see, you're
Yep,
already doing it.
yep.
Yeah. Uh, I am not a fan of mint or peppermint in my chocolate.
My son is the same way. He
I
just
can't
is
do it.
like, you've ruined this chocolate. Like,
Yes.
I can totally do chocolate mint, no problem. But yeah, he hates anything mint. For him, it's that the flavor is just too strong. It overpowers, anything. He's just like, he doesn't even like minty toothpaste. I mean, he uses toothpaste, but he does
Yeah.
not like the mint in toothpaste. Are you a mint fan at all?
Oh no, no, I love mint. I've
Just
got
not with your
this is
chocolate.
my this right here sits beside my
Yeah.
computer as I'm writing because I'm chewing gum and the juices are going, that I mint is great. I like it in stuff like toothpaste and gum, and I feel like and mouthwash, and that's where it needs to stay in its lane.
That's where it belongs.
But because it's in this lane, when somebody puts it in chocolate, I feel like my mint went on a dirt road.
Yes, yes.
And now I feel like I'm brushing my teeth with a chocolate bar.
Yeah. Yep, I went into my boss's office the other day and he had these little truffles that were like the fancy chocolate, you know? And so I grabbed one of those because, you know, when you go into the boss's office, you should at least get to steal some candy.
Exactly.
Boss is a cool guy, didn't mind. So I grabbed this truffle and then I forgot that I had it in my pocket. And my partner, I was working the Oregon Library Association conference. So I'm standing there and we're standing there selling books. And she literally reaches into my pocket and realizes, oh, you've got candy. And she pulls it out and it's A, dark chocolate, which she doesn't like, but B, it was like a sea salt. And oh, she was so revolted. She was like, "Do not put crystals of salt in my chocolate." And I was like, "Hey, you stole my candy. You know, that's kind of what you get." But yeah, she was not a fan of the salted chocolate. But I think it's the same thing. Like you just don't expect that flavor to be there.
Yeah, so that's my big controversies. And I mean,
Yes.
I get some dirty looks. That's like mentioning pineapple and pizza to people, man. It's like that one also pokes the bear, you know. And
Yes. Okay. Well, we'll have to see how much attention we can generate with that controversial take for you. So Dutch, where can folks find you online?
well, I have my Instagram, I have my Facebook, I have my TikTok, I got my Patreon, and I got my YouTube. And I
Yes.
sound like an old Southern advertiser when I do that, but my
Yes. Yes.
Arkansas is showing. I apologize.
Well, let's make sure we get links to all those in the show notes so
Yes,
folks can
sir.
find you there. And then do you have any ideas about who else I should have on the show?
Oh, yes, Catherine Bittner. She was one of the first people I befriended on TikTok, and she is amazing. I bought her book Strayed, and I'm waiting until I finish book 3 of COD, or not Call of Duty. I know everybody
Yeah,
thinks
yeah.
Call of Duty, Chronicles of Dawn, you know, it's not cash on delivery.
Right.
So when I finish that one, I'm gonna sit down and read it. But from what I understand, everybody out there is raving about it, and she's been quite helpful. You know, I put out questions and such on social media, and she's usually the first one to respond with wisdom.
Yes. Well, and it is so important that we as writers support one another. Like this
Yes,
is a not a career path where we are competing. I tell authors all the time, like when somebody reads your book and says, "This, I love this book so much, I want to read more," that helps me. So I want to help you. I want more readers to find your
exactly.
book, And so yeah, it's wonderful that somebody like Ms. Bindner is supportive of other authors. I encourage all authors, don't treat other writers like they're your competition. These are your
Yeah.
colleagues. So Catherine Bintner, Strayed. Okay, well, I'll reach out.
And
Um,
I think she's actually written more books, but Straight is her latest one, and it's such a compelling story from what the notes say. And I'm like, and I'm just a big softie, so I'll probably curl up in a room and I'm not crying, you're
yeah, yeah.
crying, one of the
Oh yeah.
Italians. So yeah.
Yeah, my partner was just telling me that John Green's Turtles All the Way Down has been made into a film, and I don't know that I'll be interested in seeing the. It's not my movie choice, but I did read the book, and I was like, yeah, I totally cried.
Yeah.
That was one that
Like
got me.
like P.S. I
So
love you, that one.
yes, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, I admit that a book has to be, it has to rise to a certain level to get me like that. But boy, when it gets me, I never forget. Like, oh yeah, that one got me.
yeah, I
Um,
had somebody walk in on me once while I was writing, and I don't know if you've come across this, but as a writer, you put parts of you
oh yeah,
in that book. And I was writing a very emotional segment and I was crying
yep,
and I didn't realize it. And this person was like, are you okay?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm
I
like,
realized I cried at one point in the editing process. I was
mm-hmm,
going back and reading something I had written, and it affected me so much that
yeah,
I was like, that's good. Like
yeah.
this is a good scene if it's making me cry as an editor as as I go back and try and touch it up. But it's funny because I've read that passage at readings, and some people's reaction is they'll laugh. And I'm not sure to what extent it's they're uncomfortable with the fact that it's really sad, or
Oh,
if they're like, oh, that's funny, and then there's somebody sitting right next to him that's like, that's not funny, that's grim. Like, but yeah, people's reactions at readings are always really
and
something
that's
I pay attention to. I mean, that's a great way to kind of do your A/B research while you're, is this scene working? the audience has loved this one in a reading. So
it's like, that one person that's laughing at it, you're thinking to yourself, do you kick puppies for fun?
Yes,
What's
exactly. Is this, this is what's the Christy Gnome who shot her puppy and bragged about it. Apparently we've got Christy Gnome in the audience tonight, folks. Okay, so before we get to our send-off, there's some folks I do have to thank. Thanks to the artist Max Oakland, who reached out and provided one of his songs for our intro song, I Prefer the Dusk. Let Max know you like it by following him on Twitter at Max Oakland with 3 Ds. And thanks to Halisna CCO for their song Kids for the ad break. If you're in a band, you'd like your song used on the show, I'd love to highlight a listener's work like Max's song, so email me about that. Thanks to Doug, the producer, for making the show sound good and taking the blame when it doesn't. And Doug, I'm sure you heard it, but I've got a great sneeze in there that you will need to cut out. If the audience didn't hear it, you've got Doug to thank. If you did hear it, you've got Doug to blame. I cannot forget to mention, Writers Not Writing is a production of NotAPipePublishing, so please go to NotAPipePublishing.com and check out the amazing books written by writers who didn't procrastinate too much. If you like this show, rate and review it wherever you found it, and please check out Dutch's Weapon of Dawn, the first book in the Chronicles of Dawn series, and rate and review. It makes a huge difference. Make Dutch's day. Give it that click on that 5th star and, let him know you liked it, and you will absolutely make his day. Same with this show. Click on the little thumbs up there on YouTube, or on the 5th star on your podcasting app. And then please tell a friend about the show. That's one of the biggest things you can do. Post about it wherever. Tell people to check it out. So, Dutch, as we let our listeners go into their week, what is some advice you would encourage them to take with them into the week?
Just remember, wherever you go, there you are.
It is inarguable and tautological. Excellent. And I always say to folks, a book without spaces would be gibberish, and our lives need spaces too, so don't ignore the spaces. And third, no matter how much you procrastinate, Dutch and I are still proud of you.
That's right. I'm so proud.
If I take my time,